Okay, this is tutorial number 5, and I'm just going to go to Xcode here and run it so you know where we stopped at our last session. We should load up our table view with our 7 dwarfs, and they are not in order as you notice, but of course they are in the order of which we listed them. So what if you wanted to put them in order? What would you do? Well, we're going to pardon me, sort the array. And we could sort the temporary array, but it's temporary, so what's the point? We're going to do it to the one that is part of our class. And we're going to set it equal to itself, but using a sort array using selector. Notice these methods that come up. Let's say NSArray. That's a method. All arrays in the array class have access, when created, to these array methods. Now they're instance methods. I would not have access to these methods if this list data array hadn't been created. So this is an instance method. We're going to use sort array using selector. We're going to type in the @ sign, you've seen that, and pick up the selector. We need a selector to do the sorting. That's why we need this little @selector, and we're going to type in something called case insensitive compare. So what is this doing? We're going to close our braces and end it with a semicolon. It says take the array and set it equal to the array now sorted using a selector. The selector we're going to use is one that is not sensitive to the case of these words. So if this were upper or lower case, it makes no difference. We're going to run it to show you it in fact does work. I'm going to bring this over here. Okay, and you see all of the 7 of them are in order now alphabetically, ascending. You could sort them in a descending fashion. We won't do that now. I'm sure that there's a way of doing that as well. We're going to then I want to talk too about time, which is the other issue. When I mean time within programming. There's something called runtime. When the app runs, things are happening while they're running. It's called runtime. When methods are triggered, that's the triggering time. In this case, it's when it loads. If I were to modify this array at runtime while it's running, take one of them out, add one of them, add something else to it, and then refresh it in the will appear method. Right? When I go to rerun the app, I'll get all 7 back. So it's a static setup here. We don't have a setup which can change when you run the app. The only way to do that would be either with a plist, which is quite difficult, or what I love to work with is SQLite, and we'll get to SQLite down the road, where you can save the changes, and then when you load up the app, now they've been changed. You could have nothing listed in the table view because you have no list, let's say, or no items, and then you can add them, and then when you open that app again, they'll be there because they're saved. So we're dealing with a static situation. I want to make sure you know that. This array doesn't really change because every time we load it up or run this app, it's the same array. We'll come down here to our self-erode index path, this method here, which basically configures the cells, loads them up, and returns them and lists them. So what we see here is each of the dwarfs is an object in the array, and they become a text in the table view. Alright, we're going to type down here. I just want to, I have to set this back to the way it was set up. Okay, the original way with which it was set. This is what your code will show. I just made a change before I ran this tutorial, but we're going to now add detail, right? Okay. So cell detail text label dot text. Same Same arrangement here, right? We're going to say equals. We're going to call this test. All right. Okay. And we're going to run this. And we would think we would see test appearing below each one of these, but we're not. Why? Because again, time. When is this happening? Well, it's happening within this method. Is the method allowing for it to be created? No. The default, the cells that are created when any table view is set up from Xcode are default cells, which means they only show text. They don't show anything other than text. If you back up to the style word, you see there are 4 different cell styles here. Okay, and these K's, by the way, are constants. These are actual constants. They have a certain value intrinsic to the code, and the code reads it. If we choose subtitle, for example, I just want to do that one now, and now we run it. What we're going to see is, now we have them. Alright, I'm just going to click into here, and just to show you the other styles quickly, value 1, we're going to run that one. It's going to ask us to stop here. We want to stop the simulator. And now we have this kind of version, okay, which if you like that, you can use that. And then we're going to just back up here and put 2, and this is a very interesting one as well. Very unusual. You have all of them here, and then of course the detail on the right of them. I'm not quite happy with that. I don't really care for that one myself, but if you like it, by all means, go for it. So subtitle is what we want. But now, when we do that, we know we see test as the detail for each item, and that's not really dynamic. When we say dynamic, it doesn't recognize each item and number it or configure the detail per each item. You might want to do that, you might not want to do that. We'd like to. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have another line that says create string. And we're going to use the ns string variable, or actually class, I'm sorry, and create a string variable. So we use the ns string class and create nSQL as our string, and we're going to set that equal to, we're going to type in something here. This is dwarf number, right? And we're going to close it off there. Okay, we're getting a little warning here. Why? This variable is created, but it's not used. Whenever you create a variable in Xcode and it's not used, it warns you. So what we're going to do here is we're going to then type it in here. And of course it comes up in IntelliSense because it's been created. It's been created, so it comes up here for us without having to retype. And of course it goes away. Now you're going to ask the question of why write that one big line of code? Why not just write this word here? Well, we're not quite done yet. I'm going to just run this for a second to show you that does in fact work. And there you have it. Okay. We need to do something. We need to modify, or actually I'm going to call it concatenate, because that's the string, is to add something to the string. When you modify, you concatenate. We're going to call up the string. We're going to set it equal to, and we're going to have the braces again because we have to call a method for this string, which is called string by appending. Now notice, my braces, my variable, I call the method for it. These are string methods. Again, all strings have these methods. In Xcode, they're available to them. We're going to call this one by format. We're going to type in, again, anytime we append a string, we have to append it with a string. This wildcard, %nd. I'll explain this in a second, and then we're going to put the row in. The row, by the way, is the string that you find here, which is the index path row. We're going to utilize an already created string. See how Xcode is flowing very nicely? And I'm sorry, didn't type it. Whoop, didn't type it. There we go. Okay, so we say here, take the string we've created, call the string by appending format method, and append to this string a new string, which is going to look for an integer. That's just wildcard here. Look for an integer, and the integer is the row. So if we run this, it's going to append the row number to this isDwarf number. And what you're going to see is, ta-da! Alright. This is very, very important. I can't overemphasize this. Notice that 0 comes up. The first row of a table view is row 0. It is not row number 1. I'm going to quit this for 1 second. How do we fix that? Well, you might guess it's a simple one. Just add number 1 to it. Plus 1 to the row number. And when you do that, you get... Whoops, I'm sorry. We have a little issue here. I'm sorry, I put it in the wrong spot. I have to put it over here. That's what happens when you type in the wrong code. You create an error. Get used to it because it's going to happen to you. Don't worry about it. I just put it in the wrong space. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. And there we go. 1 through 7, all of our dwarfs. So we have them numbered dynamically. If we had 12 dwarfs, we would have 12, 1 through 12. It would pick up the row number. It would add 1 to it. It would append that to this line here, and it would then make that our detail text label. So that is how you can do that, and it's the only real way to do that. We're going to do some other things here right now. We are going to, just quickly, we've got some time here, format the cell. Oops, sorry. And we are going to call up the cell, dot the text label, which is the only one that's available to us. The other ones are lined out because they're no longer available properties in Xcode, and when they update Xcode they do this. You can get them, but they're in different locations, and we'll see them in a minute. Actually, if we just go back for a minute, notice text color is lined out. We want text label, but watch what happens. Text color is in fact a property of text label now, and we're going to set that equal to brace again. We have to bring up a UI color. If we're going to change the color, we have to change it to a UI color. So if we're going to change this property, we have to bring up a color property. And you can play around with this. We're going to use blue color. Okay. And one more thing we're going to do here. Text label again. But we're going to bring up the font property of, do that again for you, the font property of the text label. And as we did over here, we cannot set it equal to a UI color. You'll get an error message there. We're going to change the font property. We're going to need a font. And we're going to pick up our friend the bold font of size, bold system font of size. And we're going to put a 16 in there. And we're going to finish it off. And we're going to run this. We'll explain it in a second, what we did. We're going to move this over too while we're at it here. Okay, so we said here, okay, change the text color to blue and change the font to the bold system font and make it size 16. I think I'm going to up that a little bit. We're going to quit here and bring it up to 18 just for the sake of aesthetics. I want a little bit larger. We'll run it one more time for you. We have one last thing to do before we close out this session. I don't want to run too long. Okay, a lot better there. Whoops, let me just, okay. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to format the detail as well. we're going to call up the detail text label and the text color on that as well. And we're going to set that equal to, again, color to color. Remember that. I think I want, don't have silver there, black. Black looks probably good. Black is fine. And then the other thing we're going to do here, detail text label, under font, that also has a font attribute. Now, we're going to have to set that equal to font as well. UI font, I take that back. Whoops, sorry. UI font, there we go. And we're going to call our italic system font of size, I don't know, let's say 12. And we'll explain this right after we run it. The gray is a little light, so I want to go to something darker for... Okay, we're going to make it a little larger too while we're at it. That system italics is a little small for us. Let's bring that up to like a 14 and run it one more time. Again, you play around with it. You get the idea of what's comfortable for you, and it's going to be comfortable for your user. And this is pretty good. I mean, this is nice. We could bring it up even higher if we wanted, but I think we're okay here. If you wanted to bold this, what will happen is it will override the italics. If I put a line in here that said detail text label font, UI font, bold, like I did here, 14, it'll override it. What's happening is it's saying, okay, now change the font again. If you want to have both bold and italics, you have to then go in here and you have to UI font with name, and specify the name and the type. Some fonts are just bold, some are bold with italic. You have to know what you have within your system, and that can be tricky. I like staying with the system fonts, and I think Apple recommends the system fonts. Don't get crazy with things because they really don't appear well within the real estate you have on the screen. So in any event, what we did here was we said, okay, same thing here. Go to the detail text label and change the color to black and change the font to italics. I'm going to run it one more time to close out this session. So when we come back for our next session, what we're going to do is we're going to run, I'd like to push another view on top when you select. See, if you select these right now, nothing happens. And then at some point configure a button to add a dwarf to the array to show you how that works as well. What I'm trying to do here is to get you to get the building blocks of an application to you, so that when we get to something like SQLite, everything will make sense rather than jumping right into it the way a lot of people do it. So that is our tutorial number 5. See you in tutorial number 6. Have a good night.